everybody out there in comic book land. My name is George Serrano, aka The Don, and if you're listening to this, you could only be here for one reason, and that's a brand new episode of the Major Issues Podcast, brought to you by Comic Book Clique. And as you know, I am never alone. Sir, please introduce yourself.
What's up, everybody? It's Jonathan Escudero, aka Yogi.
Yogi is here 2 weeks in a row, brother. 2 weeks in a row. It's good to have you.
It's been a long time since this happened.
It's been a long time. It has been. It's definitely been a long time. But you are here for a great episode. And I had to get you here in studio for this great episode. Because on this episode, we will be discussing Detective Comics 1,000. 1,000 issues of Detective Comics over 80 years of the Bat, the Cape Crusader, the Dark Knight Detective. Did you think that you would live to see this day? I mean, you're relatively young, but still.
No, I mean, you got to figure like this is 1,000 issues. I think only Action Comics before this has done it. It's wild when you think about it. Like 1,000 issues of a comic book. That's how many months? How many years? Well, actually, could probably look that up right now.
Well, at least at this point, it's 80, right? It's 80 years.
80 years, exactly. 80 years worth of Detective Comics. I wonder if there's anyone out there on that on the planet who's actually been around for it all and like
right
to collect it.
There has to be. I mean, with the first issue of Detective Comics, or the issue that Batman actually debuts in, coming out in 39. I think the first issue comes out in 37. So that person would be 80. I think there's like a 90-year-old sitting around with his bat cape on.
You figure you'd be like 90 years old, still around.
Right.
You know, they got those 100 years old, world's oldest people.
I want to know what that man thinks. Like, what is he going around saying? That's not my Batman. My Batman wears purple gloves and he cracks people's necks.
I really miss the purple gloves.
Oh, I love those purple gloves. That nothing shows me that it's that Batman than those purple gloves and the nice little ruffles that happen on the top of it, like where the wrists are at.
Yeah, the oddly shaped ears too. They like wider apart.
Yeah, and they don't come out the top more so than the sides.
Like horns a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. But I think the closest thing Marvel has to this is Spider-Man.
No, I think they've got Captain America.
Cap? What's Cap up to nowadays?
Well. I was thinking like 80 years and I got mixed up. You were talking about issue numbers.
Yeah.
I guess probably Spider-Man, but they just kind of started it over. Are they still doing the dual numbering thing on the covers?
Man, listen, that's a whole nother needle in a haystack. But I remember they had just celebrated 800 issues not too long ago.
Okay, so yeah, it would definitely be Spider-Man. Probably Fantastic Four right behind it.
If they stopping, right?
If they're doing the dual numbering thing, it should be Cap. You figure it'd be Cap, right? He's one of their oldest characters.
But I think he got put on ice for a number of decades, which then
absolutely right.
stops the Captain America comics for some decades. That's what I'm saying. You don't get to this astronomical number without staying power, like actually printing these issues out.
Absolutely. There's so much demand for Batman, and I know sometimes people complain, why does Batman have to be in this movie? It's about to be like Justice League Dark, for example.
Oh yeah, right.
It's like we wanted to see Justice League Dark. Why'd you guys have to shove Batman in there? But he's like the hook. He's the moneymaker. Like that's that goes to say something. 80 years of that type of staying power, like you were just saying.
And you don't get that far without changes, without evolution, without de-evolution sometimes.
For sure.
What
was around, yikes.
Batman, the mythos, the outfits, the gadgets, the rogues gallery, the Bat family, all those things twisting and turning and changing as the character evolves. So I wanted to actually talk about some of the most iconic issues of Detective Comics. Like I said, 1,000 issues, so we definitely can't name them all. But I think an honorable mention obviously goes to the first Detective Comics, right?
With the racist cover.
Yes. So you know what's funny? I knew that Action Comics #1 has Superman in it. And I knew that Detective Comics #27 had Batman in it. But for some reason, when doing the research for this particular episode, it completely left my mind that it was the 27th issue. So I go and look up Detective Comics #1, and I see this caricature of I believe, a Chinese, an Asian man.
Yes.
But this legitimate like caricature, like how they used to draw the Mandarin, kind of. And it's just, I was like, what? Am I reading the right? Is this the right comic? Like, is this? And yeah, with that issue, even though it has a racist cover,
they
it
were actually supposed to release a collection called Before Batman, which would have collected issues 1 through 26 of Detective Comics, and it actually got canceled.
oh
So
wow.
I wonder if that cover had anything to do with that.
Have you looked at some of those earlier ones without Batman in it? It's kind of a mixed bag, like it's a variety show almost.
You know what? I haven't. I
Okay.
haven't. Just like you said, it kind of slips your mind that they even exist
Yeah,
because
right.
it's
Because to you, Detective Comics starts at 27.
yeah, you know.
Right. No, definitely. I got that same feeling too. And when I was looking through one, because again, I did not know what was going on. Like I forgot that it was 27. I'm looking through and I'm like, who are these normal people? And when am I going to get to Batman? And then eventually, when the issue ended, I was like, oh, that's not how that goes at all. It ends up being like we said, issue 27. But that issue 1 of Detective Comics introduces Slam Bradley, who ends up being a character in one of the stories that we're going to review today. So
Yes, that's right. You know what? I had heard the name before, and I'm like, where have I heard this? I've seen it in like wiki searches late at night when you get sucked into a wiki hole.
right, definitely. But I saw the name. I saw the name first in the story, and then I was like, I don't know who that is. I'm pretty sure that's just like a Matches Malone kind of tie there. And then when I read the first issue, I was like, oh, so this makes a lot more sense. Detective Comics issue 1 was just literally Detective Comics. It was just literally detective stories, mysteries, and stuff like that. The same way you had horror comics, the same way you had literally action comics. And so the Batman's debut in issue number 27 in the story The Batman and the Case of the Chemical Syndicate, which comes out in May of 1939, is literally just a story in the comic, which also has other stories of detectives. This is just one story, one additional story of a detective. But we had already covered in the Bill Finger episode that we did, available wherever podcasts are found. We had already covered the idea that this character, the Batman, was always meant to be a successor to Superman, like always meant to be
basically
in that
DC.
importance. Yeah.
They were really successful with Superman, and they were like, "Hey, let's get another one."
Do that
Could you
again.
could you imagine being a fan of like the detective stories that and issue 27 they put in this stupid guy dressed like a bat, and you're like, this is totally gonna sell, right?
Bro,
Or
it had to be like Poochie in The Simpsons. Like, we're like, wait, who the hell is this guy? Let's get back to the Sherlock Holmes of it all. Like, what is this going on here? And no, but it takes the world by storm. It pushes Detective Comics forward. One of the most important issues of any comic ever. And if you have that first issue in the first print, my God,
then
you
you're
could probably buy your own house.
you're probably already rich. You figure
Yes.
at this point, I wonder how many, like we were joking about earlier. I wonder how many how many people that actually purchased that at the newsstand still own it today. It's got to be like nobody.
Or how many people who saw it at the newsstands threw it out?
Oh
Like,
my gosh!
you know what I'm saying? Like, ugh, what's
Could
this?
you imagine still having been alive in like 1990 and seeing this explode and being one of the people that was originally into Detective Comics and scoffed at it?
Yep.
You
Yep,
know?
yep. Or one of the people that got Detective Comics number 27 or even number 1 and saved it, and then when Seduction of the Innocent comes out, goes to a comic burning,
Oh God!
and throwing
You
away
deserve
millions
it.
of dollars.
You deserve that if you did that. Okay.
Definitely. Were you ever able to read that Detective Comics number 27?
Yes, I have, and the constant retellings, right?
What did you think of the original not retelling of the Batman and the Case of the Crime Syndicate? And I have to ask you this question. How do you feel about the hyphen?
The Batman.
The
Well, usually
Batman.
that's come up in certain like stories down the line, and like some of these like anthology celebrations that they do.
Uh-huh.
But I think I don't know. I feel like it works better the way it is now.
Okay.
But for the time, like it's like it was. He was named by the people that have seen him, so it's like it's the Batman. So
Right.
I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was surprised to see Gordon there so early.
Oh, it's just like in like the first issue of Action Comics, where it's like Superman is the one that everybody knows debut, but Zatara was also a character, and
Right, just sliding
yeah,
in there.
yeah.
But this idea that like they already established Bruce Wayne as this young socialite that like there's a scene in which is like Commissioner Gordon gets a phone call, and I love all the thought, the speech, and the narrator bubbles because it's so of the times where everything has to be explained. Like, hello, Commissioner Gordon here. What, a murder? You say? How do I, on what, Third Street? I'm on my way. It's like, wow, we just heard the whole conversation through just your side, but he gets a call like that to go investigate this this murder, and Bruce is like, yeah, I'll just go with you. And I'm like, what? What? Like, you just did that back in the day? Like, if you're not busy, I'll accompany you to the murder scene, and then you could just drop me off afterwards.
That's what I'm saying. It must have been really strange reading that when you're used to like Dick Tracy type stories, and then this guy just randomly comes out with a bat suit, and he's being a detective too. Because I
And
don't think they gave him an origin for a few more issues, right?
no, and he's one step ahead of the police the entire way. Like, the police are always one step behind, just getting to the house, when things happen. And I do like though how the issue ends, which is like, Batman. If anyone knew that the socialite young Bruce Wayne was Batman, the Batman, who knows what the next adventures are gonna be. And it showed that the story was in the mystery. The story was in the shrouded in darkness. This man that he could have taken all the credit, right? He could have been walking around Gotham like, you will fear me, and I am the Batman, and I am, but early on, first issue, we know he has a relationship with Gordon. We know that he's to the uninitiated, he is a young socialite who without a care in the world because he's a millionaire, and to those who do know, he stands up for truth and justice. He at night he chooses to wear this outfit, dressed like a bat. Do they go into, because obviously a lot of Batman's mythos is tied up in Detective Comics, but ultimately he ends up getting his own self-titled comic, and
Yes.
that's where a lot of the other developments end up happening. Do they ever get back to the suit? Why the suit?
Why the suit?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure it's been told different times by other writers, but I wonder. I'm not sure if Bob Kane and Bill Finger actually told a story like that.
I did see a story that had to do more with his father. Like, apparently his father wore a bat costume or something like that.
It's
You know how they
like
always try to tie it back to Thomas.
it was like a Doctor Hurt thing.
Right. And it was
But
like, well, I'll just use this
Morrison
my
actually
dad's
did that.
old bat costume to save the world. It's like,
I don't think that's canon now for sure.
Right.
But I'm Grant Morrison actually used that as a plot point where people had thought that Thomas Wayne was back alive, and I could just imagine the original reception of that. Like, oh God, they brought Thomas Wayne back to life.
and he had like the little pointed,
and it was like, yeah,
masquerade
he had
mask.
like yep, exactly. That it turned out to be Dr. Hurt and the Black Love stuff. We actually talked about this on a previous podcast. I wish I could pinpoint the episode. Like those little anecdotes in the comic books.
Yeah.
That scene in episode 39.
And there's a lot of that, and I see it more with DC, maybe because they have a bit of a longer history. But this idea that they'll put something down, and if you get it, you get it. Like if you get the reference or whatever. But it's not one of those things like you won't get the story if you don't get the reference. I like that they allow those who want to deep dive to get those delicious Easter eggs.
That's one of the things I love about Morrison's run.
Yeah, and but also it doesn't make or break your understanding of the story.
I don't know about that actually.
You think
when it comes
to Morrison,
to
yes, yeah, no,
he's
definitely.
got this abstract storytelling style that might melt your mind if you're not prepared.
And they have to be asking for like the people to use like the Rogues Gallery and stuff like that to make sure that they're not in other books and stuff like that. And I can see him be like, anyone using William Hurt? And I'm like, what?
No.
No?
You can
All right, I got him. So we'll be nothing without that Detective Comics number 27. But I think just as important as Detective Comics number 27 is Detective Comics number 33, the story titled Legend, The Batman and How He Came to Be, which is probably a better grammatical way to put that title. But this is where we get the origin story of Batman, the two-page story. And the funny thing is, no one knows who wrote it. No,
Really?
right. So they think it's Gardner Fox wrote the main story, but he's not credited on the two-page origin. Bill Finger, as you know, co-created it and stuff like
Yep.
that, but
That's,
there's no title thing for it. And I think that's one of the most important parts of Batman. So it's kind of odd that there's no.
I almost want to assume that it was Bill Finger because all the other most important things of Batman came from Bill Finger.
I mean, you either credit it to Bill Finger or you give it to Bob Kane. I'd rather just
Well,
give it to Bill
or
Finger.
Bob Kane takes it.
That's true. That's true. And he remember he drew something. It was like, I've been drawing Batman since I was 5, like since the 18 whatever
Yeah,
the hell.
complete bullshit.
It's like, wow, guy, really?
Beginning of a whole
You just
other-
found this pristine, kept well, 80-year-old drawing that you made. All right. But yeah, that so much of Batman comes from this mythos, comes from this origin, the murder, the vow, the bat crashing through the window, everything that we think of as the core of his character doesn't show up until Detective Comics number 33. And that, I think that probably is the issue that's the most retold. That
sure, for sure. How many different times have you seen kid Bruce Wayne on his knees in front of his dead parents?
Yep, and I think just as iconic, I mean, it's getting up there for me, especially if you read the comics, is the "Yes, Father, I shall become a bat."
Absolutely.
Because that, especially in the issue 1000, they go back to that because as big of a moment as the murder of Thomas and Martha Wayne is the realization that he is going to be Batman, and that happens later on in his life. So it's almost these two turning points, and you need both sides to get into it. We had spoken off the air about the story that they were doing right before 1000. I think that they were kind of
really like
cutesily
that,
calling
yeah.
it the road to 1000.
Yeah, for no reason. I actually assumed that because we already knew that Arkham Knight would debut in issue 1000,
Right.
so I kind of assumed he would have something to do with that so-called road to issue 1000. But
Right, like they would have let a breadcrumb trail to issue
Yeah.
1000. But instead, I thought it was kind of cool that they went back to that moment as well. Went back to this idea that things definitively changed twice for Bruce. Once when
Yes.
he lost his parents, and second when he decides that he's going to become a vigilante. He's going to fight for justice, and that happens relatively early in his career. The same year that he debuts, later on in that fall/winter, we get the origin story. But you can't talk about that without talking about Detective Comics number 38. Now this is a mouthful. Batman and the sensational find of the 1940s. Robin the Boy Wonder. Cover dates April of 1940. Robin, bro. So 11 issues in to the mythos, Robin's introduced.
I guess it turned out that a lot of kids were reading the story and they wanted to give them like their own viewpoint, right?
Yeah. And it also allowed Batman to be able to speak without sounding like a crazy person. Because with Robin being around, he could be like, well, as you can see, Robin, we could just use our grappling hooks to get across. But without Robin there, he's just talking to himself. So Robin allowed him to exposit some details for the reader, which is great. But I think it's very important to note that 11 issues into the mythos, Robin is so tied in. Like, that's very close.
I know it's so close that a few years later, people started calling them homosexual.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did. What are your overall thoughts on Robin and his what he adds to Batman's mythos?
I think he's an absolutely necessary piece of the puzzle that is Batman today. For like because his his compassion under all that like roughness has become part of his character.
Yeah.
Like the willingness to take in a child that he feels is going to go through the same darkness that he did, so he wants to help them see a different path, like he wishes he could have. I think that's really part of his character today, and I feel like it's a really important piece.
I tell you, man, Bat Dad is hella entertaining, in my opinion.
He's like my okay. So just like Superman and Superdad is my favorite incarnation of Superman ever. But and I think obviously because like I have children and I can relate.
Right.
But other people without kids love him too. So it's like he's like universally lovable. It just has this new layer to him because
Yeah.
you've had years of him being a pseudo father to kids, but he finally gets a son. One that looks like him, one that's like one that when you take in a kid, they have a certain respect for you because it's like, man, you took me in. But this kid is like, I don't even have to be here. Like,
Yeah, like I'm supposed to be grateful for this. Like, what do you thought this was?
What are you talking about? Like, so it adds a great new layer to the character. I love that dad.
And Dick Grayson, you're Robin.
Dick Grayson is okay. So Dick Grayson is like everyone's Robin, right? That's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that's like the gateway Robin.
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
for me, I got to watch Damian grow up. Like I got to see his whole character arc. It's been like how many years he's been around, and he's become a part of Batman and pop culture and everything.
Yeah, so
And
talking
like,
about Grant Morrison,
yeah, absolutely. And it's like I got to watch that happen. I feel that I have the biggest space in my heart for Damian as Robin.
Yeah, I actually because I started relatively recently getting into the issue by issue stuff, less than a decade ago. I feel the same way. Like I got to see there's just nothing like growing with a comic. There's
Yes,
nothing
exactly.
you can go back and read it, but you'll never forget where you were when you were in the middle of a story and you turned that
Yes.
page. And I think that with Damien, I was allowed to do that. And in the same way, I expect people who were reading Batman in different eras to feel that same affinity towards the Robin that they had.
Exactly.
Because that was their day in and day out Robin. And then, like I said, adding the fact that it's the father figure, it has always that Batman has always been a father figure to the Robins, and now literally a father. It is really heartwarming when you see Bruce drop the facade to love, right? To be
Absolutely.
loving and to love.
Because like I said, he's so rough. Like
Yeah,
it's weird to see him have affection for something that isn't Alfred.
exactly. Let's talk about Detective Comics number 66, Meet Two-Face. The issue that debuts the great Batman villain Two-Face, and the story is by Bill Finger, Bob Kane, Jerry Robinson, and George Rosios. That's a lot of people. But that's where you get like this idea of a man turned, right? Like before, it was like people with trick umbrellas and mad scientists trying to create monster men. And in this issue, you get a man of the law, district attorney who legit is a victim, trying to stop, what is it, Marconi or Maroni?
What? It doesn't. I'm trying to remember because in different origins they've given him. It's been the Falcons,
Yes,
it's
yes,
been
that's
the
true. That's true.
Maroons, and I honestly don't know
But
who
it
would
is
have
the
been in
mob, though.
1940. But it's always the mob,
Yeah,
mafia,
it's
whatever
always
you
the
want to
mob.
call them. Yeah.
In some cases, well, yeah, he always gets acid thrown in his face. Obviously, famously in the movie, he got caught fire, and in another movie, he uses a vanilla folder to block the acid, to block the acid in his face. Something I never forgot about. But yeah, you get that at the time though, that district attorney was named Harvey Kent, not
Oh,
Harvey Dent.
I did not know that.
I think that would have been a cool tie-in if you would have found out he was related to Martha and John.
Oh
But
wow! For any future writers out there listening,
you know, it's like wait, whatever happened to you, that nephew of yours? Well, he went to that big city, and I heard he's a
yeah.
district attorney.
I find it hard to believe they haven't done that yet, right?
Yeah, right. Um, Now I think that Two Face is obviously a great and iconic Batman villain, but I think that one of the best things about Two Face is reading some of the earlier stories where it's like Two Face is robbing two banks with two guns and two
it's always
cars.
it's always a pun.
Yeah, and it's always like, but who could have done it? It's like you only got one guy, bro. There's one guy that walks around here and does that two stuff. And so you can narrow it down pretty simply. Um, We can't talk about villains and villain origins or debuts without talking about Detective Comics 168, which came out in February of 1951 in this classic issue by Bill Finger that George Rossos and Lou Schwartz. We get the Red Hood. The Red Hood,
Yes.
and we get the Joker origin for the first time. This is what they end up taking and moving forward with in the Killing Joke, but it doesn't get that piece till here. Did you like that whole addition of the Red Hood? The idea that this man is inanimate. What is it? And
I actually really like the concept of Batman, of the Joker being a creation of one of Batman's, I guess, mistakes. Would you say it was a mistake to chase this guy across a tub full of acid or
I'm
whatever?
pretty sure writers have addressed it, but I actually would want to know. Getting into Bruce's mind, does he think about that moment? Does he
Oh, sure.
does he have regrets in that moment? Did he think of this guy as anything other than just a low life criminal? And so when you have that kind of mind state when he's hanging people by the backplane, right? You get like he had a pretty no nonsense attitude at that time, and this idea that something like this will come back to haunt him, I don't think it's something that we've seen before. I mean,
I like that Christopher Nolan made it a you became the bat, so that spawned something bigger, and like I like that. Maybe without Batman, there wouldn't even have been a Joker, so Gotham wouldn't even have been dealing with so much of Joker's bullshit.
but Yogi, if that's the case, then we don't get the show Gotham.
Oh my god!
It's the truth because Gotham postulates that all these guys have been in Gotham. All these villains.
That I guess I know it's such a nitpick, but it's like Gotham is like, oh, it's not my thing. It's like it gives me superhero blue balls. Like
Yeah.
you're gonna get Batman at the end of the series, but like I've got every single one of his villains now, even people that were created because he was Batman, but he's not Batman
Yep.
yet. This feels really weird.
Yes, none of it makes any sense. I thought Bruce Wayne is the one who accidentally who takes the funding from Mr. Freeze, and that's the whole reason why that happens.
Sheesh.
But neither here nor there. Uh, but the Red Hood becomes so iconic. That story. It gets adapted for the Killing Joke, and then literally the Red Hood. We get Jason Todd taking the moniker. That was so iconic because it was this literal faceless villain. And it could be anybody. And so when it returns to get Batman, it really means something to not only Batman but those who have read and remember. Oh yeah, that's.
That must have been a really cool thing. I wonder how many people actually figured it out because of that.
If it was anything like Arkham Knight, they were lying and denying it the whole way through. They're like, "Don't worry, it's not Jason. Don't worry, it's not Jason. You ain't got nothing to worry about. It ain't Jason." Um, let's talk a little bit about Detective Comics 225 because these are detective comics, by the way, and Batman is one hell of a detective. But what would Detective Comics be without the idea of introducing other detectives? And we get one of the best detectives, one of the best PIs in DC, a man known as John Jones.
John Jones.
You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to do the same thing. John Johns. I love The Martian Manhunter.
Absolutely, I love him as. I gotta admit, like I haven't really read too many solo Martian Manhunter stories, but I love him as a supporting character in anything that I'm reading.
Yes.
Like a lot of people know how to write him good. That's what I'm saying.
And he was really good in all the animated adaptations.
Oh,
Especially
absolutely.
like Final Frontier. Is it Final Frontier?
That might be part of my attachment to him is that I grew up with that Justice League, so like that's like my part. That's like my founding Justice League.
Right.
That the cast from the 2000s cartoon.
And
So
not many super teams have a resident alien. I mean, you have Soups, but he came over here as a baby. This guy speaks all kinds of languages. Intangible, mind reading, all that stuff. Now he's kind of cheating as a detective, but he's pretty good at it still.
Score one for inclusion.
Yeah, you understand? So let's carry it over to Detective Comics 359, which comes out in January of 1967. The $1 million debut of Batgirl. Batgirl, and this is not the Bet Kane Batgirl, but more the Barbara Gordon Batgirl, the daughter of Commissioner Gordon. the daughter of Commissioner Gordon, and not only does the debut of Batgirl harken like even more inclusion, right? Because now you have
Yeah,
your female
well,
counterpart.
like we were talking about earlier, where Batman and Robin were so close, people started thinking they were gay. That was actually part of the inspiration for the introduction of a love interest or a female in the show.
Yes. Yep. With the other one being the hopes that she gets on the TV show, because the TV show had just come out the year prior, Batman '66, with Adam West, and so it's funny because I heard a similar story with She-Hulk. I heard that they created She-Hulk in the comics first, so they couldn't randomly create her for the TV show.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So people are on their money when it comes to this and the trademarks and stuff, because they were like, we need a girl, get us a Bat girl. But instead of it just being another socialite, and instead of it being at one point one of the Bat family members is a legit relative of Bruce Wayne, it's the daughter of Commissioner Gordon. What a twist! What a cool addition, a cool little wrinkle to add, that you are going to a man and you are entrusting a man with helping you save this entire city, but you have to keep one of the biggest secrets to yourself, and that has to do with a member of his immediate family, which is the idea that every night you're putting his daughter in danger.
I mean, I actually love that it ties into Gordon because, like you said earlier, Gordon is like he's been around since the very first issue, so this kind of gives it weight. So that was a great decision.
In all iterations, does Gordon not know?
You got it's always like assumed like he does know,
Right?
But is there like in canon right now? Does he know? I don't think so.
Okay.
Or he acts like he doesn't know, because in my mind he knows.
Right.
In my mind he knows about the whole situation. He knows Bruce is Batman.
Yeah.
He knows, he knows. Okay.
Yeah.
But it's not commonly like stated that he knows, unless it's like done for an emotional moment. I've known all along, Barbara, and then it gets erased later on for some reason.
Yep. Or you get the sometimes being a hero is putting a coat on a kid and telling him it's gonna be all right, and that kid was Bruce Wayne, and that kid was me, and then you fly away. What did he just say? What did that guy just say?
It was so inspirational.
Anyone catch that? I wonder who that man was. But yeah, man, Batgirl. I like Batgirl. When I think of Batgirl, to tell you the truth, when I think of like the scope of the secret, the scope of her going behind her father's back and all that stuff, I think of that Over the Edge episode of Batman the Animated Series.
Oh, one of the best.
Oh my gosh, I still get goosebumps. I'm getting goosebumps talking about it, but it's this idea of almost it could almost be pitched as a what if story, but basically Barbara gets hit.
That's almost what it was, though.
Yeah, Barbara gets hit with some scarecrow toxin, and she imagines what would happen if not only she died, but if her body was thrown off a building and it landed on Commissioner Gordon's car, and then he found out that it was his daughter. And like all of that,
really weird. Like usually when you're dreaming, you fall, you die, you wake up.
Yeah, she's the third party in her own dream. But like all of it, Gordon, I always knew, and I never thought I had to come for you, but now I'm coming. Like all that stuff, cut the crap, Bruce, all that. I was like, all right, I'm with this. I completely dig this. What colors do you like your Batgirl in?
Gotta go with the black and gold.
Black and gold?
Yeah, I know a lot of people like the Burnside outfit, the black and purple and yellow.
Yeah, but something like that baby blue,
Yeah, I'm more of a fan of the original.
Yeah, that black and gold looks pretty damn good. Purple's not bad though, like you were saying. Purple's not bad. It's definitely up there as well. Let's talk about Detective Comics issue 395. I like to call this O'Neill and Adams Redefine the Bat, because this story was called The Secret of the Waiting Graves. It came out in November of 1969, but this was the end of the Batmania that the television show had established. It was the end of the Bat Tootsie. It's the end of...
We're trying to get back to a serious version of Batman, as serious as you can get within the comics code.
And when I think of like Neil Adams' Batman, I think of obviously the blue Batman, but
obviously, yes,
shirtless. Sword
fight because.
fighting Ra's al Ghul.
But I mean, I think okay. So when O'Neill and Adams take over Batman and they turn it a little darker than it had been on the TV show, I think this is what movie writers and directors need to look at rather than the Dark Knight Returns all the time. As much as I
Yes.
love that story, sometimes people that don't understand Batman will read a story like that and come away with a different interpretation of him.
Right.
So I kind of wish people would look a little further back to see what it
What's weird
to
to me
see that.
is I don't
Yeah,
understand how people don't understand that the Dark Knight Returns only works with years of continuity and gravitas.
exactly.
And so,
Exactly.
why would you go straight to that? You missing out on some prime Batman by having him turn so sour so quick.
And
You
I
miss,
get that. I get that intensity is the easiest way to capture Hollywood's attention. But we've done it.
yeah,
We've done it. Let's move on.
yeah. I'm telling you, I'm waiting to see a little bundle get dropped in front of his doorstep any day now. Change this whole thing up. But yeah, like you said, this is what starts the Dark Knight detective. This is what starts, this level of Batman where he starts being taken seriously, and his stories are darker. You're getting rid of the crazy quotes, and you're getting rid of the Zebra Man, and a few issues later in Detective Comics 411, we get the introduction of Talia al Ghul, which obviously then contains the first reference to Ra's, and that opens up an entire Pandora's box of stories you could tell
Absolutely.
with Batman, because now Batman's international. Now Batman is dealing with secret organizations. We're not. It's um
It's gone from just Gotham and everything to
and
like
pirates, bro. I
worldwide.
saw I saw an issue where he fought a pirate. It's gone from those, the Ham and Eggers and the pirates and stuff, and now we're taking on whole organizations, secret organizations that are operating in the shadows, and I think that's a really really cool and also a kind of tropey thing we end up seeing with Batman a couple more times. This idea that the secret Avenger is fighting secret organizations, which I think is very very cool. What do you think of the character of Ra's al Ghul?
I actually really like Roz. I really like Roz. I really like Talia. And they gave me Damien.
Yeah,
The eventual evolution of those characters brought
yep.
us Damian Wayne. But I like the idea that there's this person that is so focused on their own goal that they clearly know Bruce is Bruce and they don't care. That's not my business, detective.
Right.
I just I want to save the world from itself, even if I have to kill everybody on it.
Yep.
You
And,
know,
and to have lived several times over and have that knowledge, but to
that
still be
introduction to
impressed
the
by
lab
Batman, it's like,
director,
huh?
you would think he's you would. I honestly wonder if Bruce Wayne has used the Lazarus Pit in the past, or if someone's gonna eventually pick up on the fact that he's been around it for so long.
Yeah, right. He's got some
He
residual,
has jumped in.
fountain of youth there. I dig that. Last but not least, I want to talk about Detective Comics 572 with the cover date of March 1987. It's the 50th anniversary of Detective Comics, and in that extra size anniversary issue, you see a mystery bring together Batman, Robin, Bradley P.I., um, Elongated Man, and Sherlock freaking Holmes.
I love that it's an anniversary of Detective Comics, so it's still an anniversary of Detective Comics. You know,
Exactly. Yep.
nowadays an anniversary of Detective Comics means an anniversary of Batman.
Right. Right. But then what? So you said 50 anniversary. I think it's harder when you start getting closer to 100 because of the pure weight of the Batman stories versus what comic.
We did get a little bit of that in Detective 1000 though.
Yes. 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 I
Uh,
like that callback. But let's go from talking about iconic issues of Detective Comics to talking about the more recent issues of Detective Comics. What are you thinking about this DC Rebirth run?
I loved it. I loved the focus on the Bat family because we had lost some of that
Yeah.
with past events.
Um, so if you've just caught up on Rebirth, which is a good jumping on point, issue 934, you've read over 60 issues of comics at this point, to get to 1000. But I do think that there was some very good stories. And we've already established that Batman has his own title. So Detective had to distinguish itself from that Batman title. And I think it did well by adding a bunch of additional characters. In Rise of the Batman, the first volume of this of the DC Rebirth stories, you get the Dark Knight enlisting Batwoman and being like, "You can lead this team of new players of Gotham Knights. I think they were playing around with that idea for a while, right?
For a little bit, but they never actually went there, did they?
No, I think it was said a couple times, but I think that they were just like, I don't think we want to stick to
It
that.
doesn't work. Sounds
Right,
like a
right.
baseball team or something.
But although the team has Batwoman, Red Robin, Spoiler, and even Cassie Kane, the biggest deal is that they enlist Clayface.
That was really I like the character arc they had him go through in this.
Yeah, it was out of left field, and he's an incredibly sympathetic character. Usually used as kind of a dud, and sometimes he's portrayed as like just monstrous, like almost not thinking, just this big
Global monster
exact.
monster.
No, definitely. And we got to see like kind of what makes Clayface tick in this. They even went back to the well with the Night of the Monster Men. It was the first big rebirth crossover that took place across Nightwing and
That was
Batman.
alright. That was alright. I thought I wasn't too enthusiastic about it before I heard it, when I heard about it, and I guess
Yeah.
it kind of
It kind of ended kind of abruptly. Like we got the
like
cure, and now we'll just give it to everybody. Open and
no,
shut case. No one's dead. No buildings have been crashed down. We're all done here. What do you think of the victim syndicate arc? This idea that innocent victims maimed or broken by Batman's greatest enemies band together and blame Batman.
I always love to see Batman deal with the consequences of his actions.
Yeah,
Because these are things people love to poke at when they want to make fun of or talk down about a character. It's like, well, look at this. How many people must he have given brain damage to, or how many people has he hurt? What about the life insurance costs that people deal with after he beats them for selling minor drugs
right.
or whatever?
And keeping, we talk, and we've had extensive talks off air about Batman's no kill rule and all that kind of stuff, but he almost creates more and more villains by letting them go,
Yes.
right? By keeping, now he thinks they will leave with the idea of like, well, I just got beat up by Batman, I'll never deal with that again, or I'll never do anything wrong to have to deal with his wrath again. But mostly they go, I need bigger guns, I need a bigger crew, and I'll try this tomorrow.
I think we should talk. I think we should talk about that for a second, though, like because
Okay.
it's like as long well when it comes to the Batman no kill rule, because I feel
Yeah.
like as long as the main version of Batman has this. As long as the main version of Batman has these rules in place, I feel like it's fun to play around with and see what would happen if he did. Like with right now, they've got the Grim Knight.
Yes.
Like
Right.
it's really edgy, but like part of me is like, okay, I kind of like this.
Well, that's the
But
thing. They say that they say in sociology that we need deviance, that we need the bad guys, quote unquote. We that in our society we need those who quote unquote do what's wrong, because it stiffens our belief in what's right. And so if you can create a Batman who's all about killing, in contrast, you realize just how much our Batman doesn't like it. How Batman, like, oh wow, he does restrain himself because this guy's not even giving a damn. Like everybody's getting it. And so you get more of an appreciation for our Bruce and his the thing of not killing. But like you said again, we've seen people on fire, right? We've seen people, we've seen him, the bat plane
fall
launch
into
grenades and all
fall
kinds of
into
stuff.
acid tanks of acid.
Yep, yep. I think in that first issue, it was like, that man just fell into a tank of acid. And he's like, yep, a fitting end for his kind. And I was like, whoa, Bruce, you're out of control here, B. One of these days, somebody's going to fall on some chemicals and you're going to have to deal with that.
It's gonna come back to bite you.
You know? How'd you feel about the death of Tim Drake? Quote unquote. I think he was the last Robin to not die
I
for a
was
while.
very angry that it didn't get capitalized on more than it did, because it was like, okay, the rebirth angle's going on, and we don't know what Doomsday Clock is yet. We just know that something Watchmen is happening and that Mr. Oz was supposedly associated with it. and we're
Yes.
like, whoa, they abducted Tim because he has so many emotional ties to everyone in the universe, and they're still trying to keep it dark or whatever. And
Yeah.
eventually, it just doesn't. It kind of doesn't matter. he
Mr.
escaped,
Osby. It was that
and
Mr. Oz story.
Mr. Oz becomes Superman's. He was Superman's dad, as we
The
all know.
whole time, as we
Uh,
all know.
and even though they kind of revealed that it was Doctor Manhattan that did it, he didn't really connect to the Doomsday Clock story at all. Like
No.
I'm kind of mad about things like that. So
No, and then it kind of got twisted into that weird future Tim stuff.
oh man, that actually I enjoyed it, but like I said, I was still mad that this didn't turn out to be an important plot point in what it seemed to be. You know, like it
Yeah.
looked like it was gonna be important. I wonder if they changed directions somewhere along the way, or if this was always the plan to just take him off the board for no reason and then put him back on.
Oh man. I that panel of him being shot up is beautiful. Tragic, but a very beautiful picture. And he had just accepted to go to college and stuff. So Stephanie was giving Batman some crap. He was like,
He was gonna leave. He was gonna leave anyway.
yeah, but Batman thought he wasn't. And he was gonna try to finish Stephanie's story, sentence or whatever. He's like, I can't believe he denied. He's like, what, denied it? He's going. He was gonna go. Like he was about to leave your ass. It just shows like how hard it is for people to get out from underneath Batman sometimes and realize that there's another life to live. I do like that Tim eventually did get to have kind of that life with taking Stephanie with him and finding out some more mysteries of his own. I think that the biggest arc for me personally in the Detective Comics Rebirth run is after Kate Kane kills Clayface.
Oh man, that
They,
was kind of tugged at the heart.
and the thing is, I did not think I would have that affinity for that character.
But Clayface of all people.
Yeah, and I don't write these stories, so sometimes I wonder what it takes to get there. Like how did they get me there? And I think what actually tore me down was that during this detective run, I started to really like Cassandra Cain, and it made me go back to read her in Batman Eternal with I forgot her dad's name, and Lady Shiva, and all that stuff there. Her humble beginnings of never speaking, only speaking in body language and stuff. And I know she had a different set of origins prior to New 52,
Yeah,
but
for sure. So did most of the people
yeah,
in
yeah,
the
exactly. She also had no eyes or mouth, but there was a I her relationship slash friendship with Clayface I thought was adorable.
Yes.
Them practicing Shakespeare, and so when the idea is that Clayface has become out of control and he is going to destroy the city, and so to stop him, they need to put him down, and no one gives Kate the word to. But she does when she sees the shot that she can take, and that takes Clayface down. But watching Cassandra rip the or point, did she rip it or does Batman rip it?
No, I think it was her, and she's like, "This means
No
no
kill,
kill,
never kill.
yeah, never kill."
And I was like,
Exactly.
damn. I was like, you just got here, you know that.
But I mean, at the same time, it was like it might have been a necessary decision, but the fact that she did it without the order makes it easier to blame her. I thought it was cool that they did it that way.
Definitely. This wasn't a case of it was clear cut wrong in my eyes, at least. And I think that the character herself goes to great lengths to be like, what are you talking about? Like, was this not the threat? Was this not the mission? Did I not act to the mission? Are we not all safe now?
Yeah, exactly.
And
And she's the daughter of a soldier, right?
exactly.
You know,
Yep.
it's like,
And she's been a soldier herself. Gone
oh,
through.
that's right, that's right. How could I forget? Oh my god.
Yeah, she's been a soldier herself. So it's this idea that like she knows the necessary things to get the job done. And in that instance, we start to really try to wonder where everyone's going to fall on the side of it. And we didn't even speak too much about them, but we got the additions of Batwing and Azrael added to
Yes.
the team.
I always one of my pet peeves is when they introduce a member of the Bat family and throw them to the side. Like
Yeah.
whatever happened to Bluebird? You
Yeah.
know, like
No,
dude
my question has been
disappeared.
now after reading 1000 and after reading all the issues up to it, where the hell is Signal?
Exactly.
Because
He's
they
he
get
just appeared randomly here.
yeah, and
And
they
then
showed like an issue towards the end of this Detective Comics run where he was like just fighting crime somewhere else, and I'm just like, wait, you just wait, are you have your own book? Is there a book, a secret Signal book that details what's going on
he
with you
did
that I don't
have
know about?
he did have a like a 3 issue book. I'm not sure if it was supposed to be 3 issues or if it got
Oh,
canceled. Or
that's not
it
good.
was like
Right.
Batman and the Signal, and it was like Scott Snyder plotted it, but someone
Yeah,
else wrote it, and I'm trying to remember who it is. I don't right now though.
and he has like bat sickles, like bat ice
It's
picks.
really weird. His costume is actually shitty. I mean, to me, I'm not a big fan of it.
Oh,
It's
Duke.
really stupid because it's so I don't know. It's got like a helmet. It looks
It's like a
like a
bike helmet. It's just like a
like a
regular.
he looks like a futuristic skateboarder or
Yeah.
some you know
Or some kind of weird futuristic rugby player, like all the padding and all that stuff.
something.
It's like, what are you out here doing? Um, did this Detective Run in Rebirth add anything you think to Batwoman?
I wouldn't say. I mean, it was definitely a fun story arc. If you're like a fan of Batwoman and you want to keep up with her adventures, that's definitely something to look forward to. But I didn't think it was like something, it like completely. What's the word I'm looking for? It's on the tip of my tongue. Like something
Necessary
like
or groundbreaking?
groundbreaking, I
Okay,
guess, or super important. You
okay.
know, like
No, I feel you. I feel you. But yeah. So the team definitively splits. You get Batwoman, Luke Fox, and John Paul Valley on one side. Um, we'll just call that tied New Team Arrow, and then we have Batman, Robin, and Orphan on the other side, and we get to see how both sides operate. And the only reason why I call him the New Team Arrow is for some strange reason. This exact story was going on at the exact same time as they were
oh
doing a
my god,
very
that's
similar
right.
story in Arrow, where uh, the woman on that team, Black Canary Dinah, she wants to kill Black Siren, and Arrow thinks she's going too far, so the team splits and they do 3-3. It's Diggle, Felicity, and Arrow, and Dinah, Curtis, and Renee. And I was like, this is very close. Like this is going on at the same time, and it's all
That
like,
was
you
That's
know,
like these are very these type of things happen all the time in comics and comic media. It's really weird, like with Captain Marvel and Shazam coming
yeah.
out so close together. It's like I don't know. I always wonder, like, because there's no way these things are planned, right? So it's like it's just fun to look at these coincidences.
I gotta ask you, what do you think about the general?
General, I'm so
No, I
sorry.
think his name is just the general. Hacker, that hacker that decides to go full heel and shave his head and take over
Oh,
Tim Drake.
I mean, at that point, we were just getting a little away from what we had been doing. I think what was it a new writer at that point?
I think so because this is when you get that whole OMAC thing. You get that whole, and then they have to go inside Tim's brain and fight and all that all that other stuff. It
Oh,
got kind of away into the weeds a bit.
kind of weird at that point.
No,
I think I
definitely.
might have jumped off the Detective Comic train for a little bit because I there was that whole futuristic Tim thing, and then after that I kind of moved on, and I was like, I'll come back to it later on. And then James Robinson came back, and I was like, oh, I'll check it out, but I wasn't still picking me up. And then the latest Tamashi run was where I really was like, okay, I can stick to this.
Yeah, that
Although,
was really good.
although I got to give my opinion about the Arkham Knight later on. We'll get to
Oh
that.
no, yeah, we're definitely gonna get there. But would you say you were on the outside looking in at that point? Because Batman was also on the outside. He go ahead and starts to try to create his own team of outsiders. This is a direct result of Metal or No
Yes.
Justice.
No, it was. I think at this point it was Metal.
Okay, yeah,
I want to say. I want to say at
right.
that because Scott Snyder's whole super event is kind of blending in for me right now. I don't
No,
know if
you're
you
not lying. And so he enlists Jefferson Pierce, Black Lightning, and he gets Katana on board. They're getting their own book in May. of
It's
this year?
been canceled. It got canceled
Whoa!
back.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think you told me this. It got
It got
canceled already, huh?
canceled back in November, but then they re-solicited it for like May, and now we'll see if it actually comes out.
They really felt like they were setting that book up, so it's kind
I
of
think
sad that if they
I
don't
think
get to go there.
what happened was they were doing this original plan where like Scott Snyder was going to do Justice League, and they were going to be like connected books, and it was going to be all interwoven. And for some reason, they abandoned it.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then,
and sadly, that happens more often than not in comics.
yeah, it's really sad. It is really sad, especially when you're a more advanced reader and you can kind of see where they're going, and then you're like, oh, they. I see you decided to take a new direction. This is very disappointing.
Right,
You know.
right. I listen. We don't just sit here and talk about Batman and disappointing, directions. But anyway, you the last two arcs that we dealt with in this rebirth run, one of them is called Deface the Face, and we see Two Face kind of hopping on both sides of the fence, literally the bad guy and the good guy. That's what he likes to do. But that last one, that Road to 1000, I thought was really poignant, and it was almost like, everyone's gonna write their story for 1000. I'm gonna take 6 issues and write it for 1000.
Yes, that's exactly what it felt like, right?
Yeah. And so after Dr. Leslie Tompkins is attacked, Bruce comes to realize that he's being targeted by someone who knows him like no other, causing him to hit a
I've got to say,
crossroads.
they fooled me. They fooled me because I thought Leslie was dead.
I'm turning these pages going, what's going on? Like, is Gotham burning? Because Bruce is just losing. He's just losing, and the villain is one step ahead of him, and is doing all kinds of crazy stuff. And I'm just like, is this how this is gonna end? Like, who is this? And I guess it gets revealed that every year on Bruce Wayne's birthday, he kind of, what would you say? He hooks himself up to a virtual reality system.
Yeah. He kind of puts himself through a emotional battle,
intense psychological trauma that he says is to sharpen his skills. I do like how that story ends, where he is asking for the kill counts every year. So they're like, why do you do this to yourself? He's like,
that's what I'm thinking about the whole story, though. It's like, you sharpen your skills. What more do you need to do? Like, why are you doing this to yourself?
Right, and that's the thing. I think we all get that. I think when he starts to say, like, I'm afraid that one day I'm gonna need to be faster than I am, and I won't be able to, or one day I'm gonna need to do this and I won't be able to. I think a lot of us are reading that and going, "Come on, bro! Like, you can do everything. Like, why are you being so hard on yourself?" But ultimately, Batman's like, show me everyone who's died this year, and it's like, 190, innocent people were killed in Gotham this year, and then he's like, show me
down, though, right?
Yeah, he's like, show me the numbers from last year, and it's like 200 and something. And so, although we all think that he's as sharp as he can be, we have definitive proof that that this is getting the job done, that his sharpening of this knife is cutting deep into the crime that's in Gotham. And if you've ever saved money and started working really, if you ever saved money and started working really hard and just started being obsessed with watching it climb up, I'm pretty sure he's feeling the same way, the opposite way around, right? I'm pretty sure there's a bunch of people telling him that he doesn't have to go out every night, that he doesn't have to bring all his gadgets, that not every crime, needs him. But when you see those numbers, there's no arguing those numbers. There's no arguing those results.
It's almost sad because that's meant to be a lot, and I know in some places that is, but in other places that's like such a small number.
Someone like Chicago,
that's the number they have within a month.
Right. But I guess Gotham is supposed to be better. Yeah, but he says that he puts himself in this position to evolve or die. He's either going to constantly change and constantly get better, or go. And I was actually pretty touched. I often forget how much Leslie Tompkins means to Batman.
Yeah, I love the way they portrayed them, like Alfred and I hate that it had to be pointed out to me. Right, this is something that I really should have picked up on my own.
Hmm.
Leslie Tompkins was basically Bruce's mom, and Alfred
Yeah,
was basically Bruce's dad.
yeah.
Like, I hate that I had to be slapped in the face with that.
And she's the one who put the foot down. Like, you will not be doing that. You understand?
Yeah,
I get you got dead parents. Trust me, I get it. We're right around the corner from Crime Alley. Damn it. And that's the thing. That's another thing that he respects about her is that she puts her clinic in the heart of where people need her the most.
she's
Um,
brave.
yes, incredibly brave. Um, but we're gonna get into the nitty and gritty and get full spoilery with the Detective Comics 1000 issue, going over each story and talking about which ones are our favorites and which ones are not our favorites. But I thought, with all the history of Batman, that I could try to quiz you a bit,
Uh-oh.
Mr. Yogi. And don't worry, it's not gonna be hard. It's basically a couple questions. You see, although Batman has a humongous history in his own comic, the Batman comic, the self-titled comic, a litany of people have debuted in Detective Comics, first before debuting in Batman. So I would like to ask you, who debuted first, and see if you can try to guess. What do you think?
Oh, this is gonna be fun. I hope I can get him. I'm not really good with remembering stats.
Trust me, I would have gotten a lot of these wrong if I didn't write them down. So let's start with a little bit of a softball. Who debuts first? The criminal mastermind Hugo Strange or the cold-blooded killer Joe Chill?
Oh, it's definitely Joe Chill.
And that is correct. Joe Chill debuts in issue 33 in 1939. Hugo Strange 36.
Oh,
36.
I actually didn't know it was so early though.
Very close. Hugo Strange is actually considered Batman's first supervillain.
Nice.
Yeah, and we see them pay a little bit of tribute to Hugo in 1000. Okay, that was you got that one. You knocked that one out of the park. So let's go to the zoo. Seeing as we're out of the park, let's go to the zoo. Who
Uh-oh.
debuted first? Killer Croc Waylon Jones or Kirk Langstrom, the Man Bat?
I want to say Man Bat, but I'm not sure. It just kind of feels right.
You're thinking of I think you're thinking of On Leather Wings or whatever from the
Well, that too, but it's like the idea of Man Bat seems so obvious.
that you just flip the words around. I don't know. He could fight some sort of man bat.
Exactly. Like someone must have thought of this really early. I want to go with Man Bat.
You're gonna go with Man Bat. Well, survey says correct. Man Bat debuted in issue 400 in June of 1970, while Killer Croc didn't come until 1983 in issue 523.
Nice.
Well,
Actually, that's pretty late that's pretty late in what I would think.
Croc, right? I thought
think-
Croc was a bit earlier. Yeah.
Croc too, but like Man Bat, it seems like I said, it seems like such an obvious thing. Like I think so. I figured someone would have came up with it much earlier on in like the golden ages or something.
Like around the Riddler and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's get a little bit of this testosterone out of the podcast, and let's talk about who debuted first. Barbara Gordon's Batgirl, or just another member of the GCPD, but this one's a man, Harvey Bullock.
Oh, I want to say Harvey. I want to say Harvey only because I know Batgirl was created just for the show, and Harvey Bullock has become such a integral part of the Gordon mythos, right? I feel like
you have
he
that
had
bullet.
to
You got that bullet for Bullock story. That's
he
pretty
had to
good.
have been there early on, so I want to say Harvey Bullock.
Survey says Batgirl actually debuted
Oh
first.
my god!
The Batgirl debuts in issue 359 in 1967. Harvey Bullock debuts in issue 441 all the way in 1974.
Whoa. Okay, I was off.
So that's about 45 years after Commissioner Gordon.
Jeez.
That's a very long time. Because I put Harvey right up there with everybody else.
Yeah, exactly. He seems like touching it. Well, I guess that's a result of me growing up on the Batman the Animated Series.
Yeah. Harvey's always so stressed on that thing. He's always just going through it. Like, he don't have the time to comb his hair or put his suit on right. He's just going through it and always smoking them damn cigarettes.
You figure when he eventually does die, it will be from a heart attack.
Yes, it's going to have to be. It's going to have to be. How about we start talking about some baddies? Who debuted first? Basil Karlo's Clayface, or the Penguin Oswald Cobblepot?
This is a hard one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have absolutely no clue. This is gonna be a
Toss up. It's
guess.
a toss up.
Boy. Penguin. This is
Clayface debuted first in
jeez.
issue 40 in 1940. 1 year after Batman's debut, you get Basil Karloff as Clayface, where Cobblepot debuts in 1941, a full year after
These are
Clayface.
actually both. They're both early, much earlier than I thought they were.
Yeah. So you've gotten two right, two
Oh,
wrong.
man.
This is the final. Who debuted first? And here we go. And fittingly, I consider this the hardest because these debuts take place within 5 issues apart.
Oh boy.
That is the spoiler, Stephanie Brown, or the question, Renee Montoya.
I feel like I know.
You're making a lot of interesting noises over there, sir.
Oh man, I've read both of these, but I read them retroactively, so
Uh-huh.
I didn't read them when they came out. Damn it. I want to say the question because New 52 because it was in 52 and that was weekly. It was coming out faster. That's my guess.
Well, that is the this is the what is it, the draw, the tiebreaker. I was gonna say
Tiebreaker.
draw breaker. I'm like, what the hell is that? Well, Renee Montoya did make her debut first
Yes.
in March of 1992, where Stephanie Brown came out in June of 1992.
Okay.
Very, very close. But just some other names to rattle off as far as debuts
You know,
here.
I'm not gonna lie. I thought you were talking about Renee Montoya as the question.
Oh, right. Well, but you still got it right. Check that
I
out.
did get it right though.
But another fun fact, Renee Montoya, to my knowledge, and I have to double check this, but I'm almost 98% sure, comes from the animated series.
Oh, I think you're right.
She
I think
she
you're
is
right.
not an original comic book character. She was created in the animated series, and they take her from there, and she ultimately becomes her own superhero. So how amazing is that?
That's sick. She's actually on Gotham too, right?
Yes. Yep. So just a real quick list of people who debuted in Detective Comics. You got Slam Bradley, like we were talking about before. That just sounds like a horrible Jim Crockett Promotions wrestler.
Ladies
And
and
this
gentlemen,
Sunday in the Alamo Dome is gonna be Slam Bradley. Uh, so Slam Bradley, Commissioner Gordon, Joe Chill, Hugo Strange, Dick Grayson, Clayface, Penguin, Two Face, Riddler, Red Hood, Firefly, Martian Manhunter, Mad Hatter, Batwoman, Barbara Gordon, Man Bat, Talia Al Ghul, Harvey Bullock, Leslie Tompkins, Killer Croc, Anarchy, Renee Montoya, Stephanie Brown, and Sasha Bordeaux. Now there was some other debuts, but I think those really highlight some really key players in there. And I think that our little game of who debuted first really shows how much of the mythos is scrambled in our heads, right? Because of depending on how we got in and depending on what was our first interaction with some of these characters.
yeah, for sure.
Now let's get into this 1000. I know y'all been waiting for us to get into this 1000.
That's what they're here for.
So let's take it story by story. The first story that opens up is Batman's Longest Case, written by Scott Snyder with art by Greg Capullo. One of the most popular talent teams in the history of Gotham Knight delivers a tale in which Batman follows clues around the world, leading him back to his home in Gotham City and to a secret organization that's been keeping tabs on him for years.
I think that it was they tied it back to like his first case, right?
Yes, yeah, that
They-
chemical, that guy who his son was blamed for his death.
Exactly. I'm really interested to see what they do with this team of detectives. I forget what they
Yes,
call
the
themselves, but
guild,
it's like
the Detectives Guild.
yes, the greatest detectives in the DC universe currently have a secret organization, and they have been trying to test and recruit Bruce Wayne as Batman.
Is that woman Sue Dibney?
I really hope so because she deserves to have that horrible bit of
History.
history and lore ripped out of her existence.
I'm looking at the picture now. When they say "Welcome to the Guild," because basically Batman is given a wild goose hunt, kind of like National Treasure style, so he could eventually be initiated into the Guild of Detectives. And we see some of DC's greatest detectives in this page, where you got Connor Hall. You have Hawk Girl. You have Martian Manhunter, John Jones, Elongated Man, Detective Chimp, our boy Bradley Smash something. What was his
Slam
name?
Bradley.
Slam Bradley. Um, the question, as mentioned before, I'm going to say Sue Dibney. There's just some random woman, but then in the background, there's just like two people checking out books. So I
Oh
don't
wait,
know.
I actually didn't see that. Is it like a big organization
I,
then?
I don't I don't know. They're all sitting there talking to Batman at the table, like, hey, welcome to the group. But there's just people in the background, like just checking out books, and
I
supposedly all these
I
books are the mysteries, the greatest mysteries that the universe has to uncover, and you could just like they're all cold cases, they're all unsolved, and so that's what this guild does. They go to try to solve the unsolvable.
I actually wonder if Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo have one final Batman story coming out called I think Last Night or
Oh, is
something.
that the one with Joker's head in a jar?
Yeah, it's like we've been seeing all these really weird teases on Greg Capullo's Instagram, and I wonder if this has something to do with that, or if they're just gonna slap a little piece of lore there for someone else to come and pick up later on if they feel like it.
Yeah, because I mean, the guild that I'd like to see a bunch of detectives going at it. You know, I like to see them getting down to the nitty gritty. And for the people who hunger for that detective part of Batman, you get it served up right there in the first issue. I mean, the first story of Detective Comics, and I do think that a lot of people um, showcase their version of Detective Batman because it is Detective Comics. You know,
Yes.
like let's lean into the mystery. So, how did you feel about that story of Batman's Longest Case?
Like I said, I kind of enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. I would enjoy it more if I knew that it was going to be a thing later on. Like I would totally read a book. I would buy a ongoing series about the Detective Guild.
Yeah, yeah, I dig it. Um, we'll get into the next story, Manufacture for Use, written by Kevin Smith with art by Jim Lee. The fan favorite director of Clerks and one of Batman's most visionary artists present a story that cuts between Batman fighting his greatest villains and his attempts to track down the
I
gun that killed his
I
parents.
gotta say, when I know it's Kevin Smith writing, it kind of pulls me out of it a little bit
Yes.
sometimes. But by the end of his story, I was pulled in. Like I like this more than I thought that I would.
So I'm gonna bury the lead, and I think on a different story, on a different day, on any given day, it probably changed. But I do think that this was probably my favorite story. And what's funny is I had the same feeling as you. I was like, okay, this is the Batman Pete his pants guy. Like I like Kevin Smith, but sometimes he thinks because he loves Batman, he could do what he wants with Batman.
That's a good description of it.
And
Oh, this was kind of evidence of that, but it
right,
was good.
yes.
You know?
So you sit there and you know you're. I'm just waiting for the other shoe to drop, you know, for him to introduce like a daughter or something.
Yeah, yeah.
And no, basically, Batman tracks down the gun that killed his parents, and then as Matches Malone, I love Matches Malone, by the
I
way.
love matches. I'm so glad he got an appearance in the celebration.
I love Matches Malone. Um, and so you see that Bruce Wayne is able to find like this weird black market of like leftover supervillain tech from
It's like
battles or crimes or any of that stuff.
Firefly's helmet, then like Freeze's gun,
It's almost like
like weird
it's almost like a
things.
museum or a pawn shop actually of just
A pawn
nefarious
shop. I'd
weapons
say
and
a
stuff.
pawn shop.
Yeah. And so as far as guns are concerned, you know, matches, Batman as matches, Bruce Wayne as matches Malone, his disguise, his very famous disguise, goes, buys the gun. Did you catch that there was a gun that they were selling that was jammed by the Joker or by the Riddler? Is
Oh,
that
I didn't.
the
I actually didn't. Oh yeah, I see it now. I kind of glossed over that because the ending of the issue is what I remember the most.
is that that's the the Jokes and Riddle gun, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, that's exactly what that is. I missed that
Yeah.
completely. Oh,
Yeah, when I read it I was like, don't go back to that. Don't point me back in that direction. Also, are you looking along?
yes.
Okay, when you turn the next page, I saw that guy, right? And I was,
Not about
I had,
fear.
that's what I thought it was, and that's a Kevin Smith
Yep. Yes, it
villain.
is. You had to get him in there.
But the first thing I thought was he reminded me of Karma, which was this villain that Batman just dealt with in Detective, where he had like a mask with like an expressionless mask and a red like light in the middle of it. And then it also reminds me a little bit of Jason's design, which then goes to show that they just kind of like to put people in
It's like a
like these
mismatch.
faceless masks that are expressionless and these leathery jackets or trench coats and
Trench
guns.
coat. It's the trench coat.
They love it, bro. Same thing with Hush. Put him in a trench coat. They love that stuff. Um, but yeah, he buys the gun, and you see a bunch of people constantly attacking him on his bat symbol on his chest. And he takes the gun, and Alfred, and I kind of like this. Alfred's like, listen, I let you do a lot of stuff. I hope you bring in that big old dinosaur and the coin and all that stuff, and I didn't complain about any of it. But I don't think that you should be using the gun that killed your parents as just like this prop, like in a museum. I think it's incredibly depressing, and I don't think it's cool at all. And he's like, oh no, nah, that's not what I'm here to do. It's never gonna hurt anyone to again.
I just really loved I love Jim Lee's like celebration artwork here. Like he's got so many they got so many villains into this.
Yeah,
Just by using it as a way to show how many different times he's been attacked in the chest, like you were just saying.
and it screams to me of Hush. A lot of those scenes, a lot of those he dealt with so many villains, and Jim Lee drew that. He dealt with so many of these rogue gallery in that story, all with beautiful art by Jim Lee. That's it speaks to me of that. Um,
I think that's his favorite version of Batman to draw because you can kind of tell that he was allowed to maybe choose which version he'd be drawing it because it looks
yes,
like it's the same design.
yes, yep, it definitely is. But he takes the metal and he smelts it, and then he creates a bat symbol. Um,
But it's not. It's like I've seen a lot of news sites running it as the origin of the bat symbol, but it's more like a armor that goes behind it.
yeah,
Like a
no,
plate that protects
he
the
had
heart.
the bat symbol when he was getting it torn apart. So he had it prior to. He didn't
No,
get
but
inspired to have it through this gun.
yeah, exactly. That's why it's like weird to see like places like comic book resources run that as the origin of the bat symbol. I'm like, nah, he was clearly wearing a bat symbol prior to that. He just kind of figured this would be that this would be really close to my heart. It'll protect me the same way it killed my parents. That type of inspirational thing.
Yeah, I think it also should be said that that idea kind of comes from like the Punisher. This idea that the big splash logo on your chest is the most armored. Like you want people to shoot at that. You want
That's
people to aim at that.
that's
And
from a Dark Knight Returns actually.
really,
Yeah, you see it, and then like the animated feature, they cut out that beautiful line where he's like, the symbol on my chest. It's big, it's yellow. Why would I wear it? It's a target
yeah,
because that's I want them to attack, and he's got the plate of armor under there. Yeah,
perfect. Yeah, perfect. So it actually does go all the way back to Batman. And if anyone knows Dark Knight Returns, it's Kevin Smith.
yes.
But yeah, after getting through it, what do you think?
I really liked it. Like I said, when I thought it was Kevin Smith, when I knew it was Kevin Smith, I was like, pull me out of it. But by the end of it, I was like, okay, this was actually great. It was heartwarming. I really liked it. It wasn't my favorite. We'll get to my favorite later on, but I liked it. I actually didn't dislike any of the stories in this anthology type issue. I kind of I guess I hated the art on the Jeff Johns story, and I know people are gonna crucify me because that's like a legendary artwork.
No,
But
I really didn't. I wasn't all that cracked up to me. I definitely on your side when it comes to that. So let's get to this third story, The Legend of Newt Brody, by Paul Dini, Dustin Eugen, Derek Fridolf, and John Kalitz. And this purports to tell the story of like the worst henchmen in the Villains of Gotham Speak documentary style about that one henchman they each hired who was the absolute worst at his job, constantly screwing up their plans. Did I say this was? Yes, I did say it was Paul Dini. And the reason why I had to double check that if it was Paul Dini was because was it just me or did this read like and
yeah,
I hate to keep going back to it, but the Batman animated series episode almost
absolutely.
got him.
Absolutely. That's the vibe I got immediately. I was just like, man, why didn't they get Bruce Timm to draw this? I wish
Yeah.
he would have went all the way with it.
And I would love to have Killer Croc say that he hit him with a rock, which is that line, man.
Hit
The
him with a
delivery of it,
rock.
it kills. He just hit him with a rock. That's it. So how far now? There really is no point in going through like a page by page synopsis of this because it's being told by many different people. But I'll ask, how far into the story did you get before you caught on
I
what was going
kinda,
on?
I kind of got it really early on, where they're like, it was like really early where I'm like, I can kind of see where they're going with this. I want to say, I want to say in the very beginning,
Okay.
but maybe the Mad Hatter one where he's like, hey, 5 minutes later the police come. He's like, he
Yeah.
fell asleep outside, and I'm like, this is getting. I can kind of see where this is going.
Yeah, it's getting a little bit convenient for a guy who, I think it was, I caught on when they shot him. When they shot him and they were like, but for some reason he just came back up. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, the worst henchman of all time just randomly popped back up and no one had anything to say about it. And so all these villains are telling this story about how they hired Newt Brody because apparently villains just hire nameless henchmen to do
You
nameless
gotta
henchmen
figure that's
jobs.
how it works, though. Especially like today, they probably have an app.
Yes, yes, yep. The same way like people just randomly sign up for Postmates and they don't even really do like checks. Same thing.
It's like
You have to
Uber, but for villains.
exactly villain Uber. Wait, you're saying Uber isn't for villains? But so conveniently, in all these crimes that New Brody seems to be at and trying to help with, he bumbles, he fumbles, and all the villains get caught. And eventually, Poison Ivy goes to kill him, like just blows some dust
She
in his
was
face.
sure. She was certain the entire story. She was certain that she had killed him because she killed him with with a guaranteed death. You know, it
Yes,
wasn't like
because Science recently did a video of like more dangerous plants that Poison Ivy could use, and I think this is one of them. The what she call that thing? The macaneal tree. I heard it was extremely poisonous and toxic and all that there. So she literally just blows the whole handful of that in his face and thinks that he's dead. But turns out that Newt Brody is basically a disguise used by various members of the Bat family, including Alfred,
yes, including Alfred.
who sometimes wants to go out there and get busy.
He's the one. He's the one who got shot.
Yes, I like in the background you see like a bunch of different masks, but yeah, they're all about just taking turns playing this new Brody guy, and you gotta think how much easier it is to catch people with this. Like
Oh man.
it's like almost good cop bad cop. I'll send you out. I'll follow you. You tell me when you fumbled, and we got him. And so I did like that. We'll go into the Batman's design by Warren Ellis and Becky Kloonman. Warren Ellis pens the Batman design with Becky Kloonman, the first woman to draw Batman in the main comic series. So
I did not know that.
definitive. Yeah, because for a while I was trying to wonder what that had to do with the story, what the title had to do with the story.
Yeah.
Um,
I actually really love the artwork too.
oh my god, and the to go back to um Punisher, the like the surgical way that he's speaking and like all that, like like I like that Batman too, the one that knows all the details, that is counting down in his head as he's going through.
That's the master strategist.
Yes, the master strategist. And I think that what do you think? That story's pretty cut and dry, right?
Yeah,
Goes
it was pretty simple. I liked that it got right to the point. Hey, I understand every single one of these people. I know how to take them down the way that they need to be taken down. I'm always prepared.
yeah, and we see him prepared to the nth degree when he sees an actual suicide bomber towards the end of the issue, and instead of blowing himself up, Batman's basically like, "Do you want to be me? Because I am tortured forever. I do
Master
this every
negotiator.
day. I'm already trapped in this world where I am constantly in front of bullets and fire and death. I put myself there. Is that what you want to do?" And the guy's like, "No," and he gives up the detonator. How do you feel about the Batman's design?
Like I said, it was definitely it was all right. It was straight to the point. It told a story. It was not. There was no real second deep layer you need to look into. Sometimes that works the best.
I
Actually, oh, okay. What were you gonna say?
no, no, I was just agreeing with you. That is the same thing. Like sometimes it just leave it on the paper. Leave it all there.
Exactly. I was gonna say this next story. I was conflicted about because I'm like, I can tell this is Denny O'Neil saying something about the character of Batman, maybe the way he thinks it is today. But
So
I love the guy. I love the art. Damn it, I love Steve Epting.
right.
I love seeing him on things, especially Batman, which is one of my favorite characters.
So I think it's kind of ironic because when I read this story, it was my least favorite story. I had put
Yeah.
it to the side as my least favorite story because it felt like an intervention at a birthday party.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's exactly the way.
You understand? So I was like, "What are we doing this now? Is
We're
this
all
is this really
celebrating.
is
It's
this
like
really the time for this?"
we're like having fun, and these stories are celebrating the history. And here comes Denny O'Neil with his old man statement.
And so yeah, basically, you see, it's a direct. Now here's the thing: it says it's the direct sequel to O'Neill's story. There's no hope in Crime Alley, from Detective Comics 557, in which Leslie Tompkins takes Batman to task for his addiction to violence, which in her mind perpetuates the horror that birthed him. And so in this story, we see
The same
Batman.
thing.
Go ahead, brother.
It's the same thing, though. It's like it could have been a sequel that shows the evolution, but no, she's still. It's to say she's still mad at him for the violence. Nothing changes.
Yeah, Batman just stops by Crime Alley just to have a talk with her. You know, just to chat a bit. A bunch of street toughs show up. One points a gun at Batman, something you don't do in Crime Alley. You understand? Like you deserve everything that comes to you after that. So Batman takes care of everyone handedly, and Leslie is just like, Bruce, no! Can't you see he's already hurt enough? Poor thing. And then Bruce goes, you feel sorry for him? And she goes, no, for you. End. It just says end. And I'm like, what? What? They were gonna kill you though. They
They
came here
pulled
to
out a
kill you.
gun.
You're an old woman. They're gonna rob you and kill you. And you're helping them back up. Bruce is too hard on them. I don't know. So I took it away from being my least liked story, only because I hope to read very soon. There is no hope in Crime Alley. And maybe that will be the other half of this circle that I feel like I'm missing, because I feel like that's kind of uncalled for in this issue, to put him on the carpet, to rub his nose in the carpet and hit him with a newspaper. I don't know if this is the issue to do that in, but Batman should be accountable. So if they want to celebrate the idea that other people can tell him when he's gone too far, then I guess that's not terrible.
I mean, like I said earlier, I just felt like you said. Actually, it's like an intervention at a birthday party. It felt like it felt like God damn, we were having fun, Granny.
Yep, yep. And then and it's also kind of weird because Leslie Tompkins in the story prior to this, like literally in 999, is like young. She's like a young
Oh,
woman.
that's true.
And so when I was reading this, I was like, wait a minute, this is like, is this a future jump or what? And I guess at one point she was just that, and then when the constant rebirths, they kept her young, and now she's young.
I mean, I know that quite a few people lost some age when the Flashpoint thing happened, and then some of them didn't exactly get it all back when the 10 years were. Excuse me. Oh my goodness.
It's
So
alright.
so
It's the story, bro. I think Leslie Tompkins took it out of you, bro.
Leslie Tompkins. No, it's when they inserted the 10 years back into the DC universe with the Doctor Manhattan thing. She just might have still been young, but I guess this could have taken place in the future, or this is an anthology book that kind of takes place all over the timeline. So
Yeah,
you never know.
yeah. So now we get into the story Heretic by Christopher Priest and Neil Adams, two of the biggest powerhouse writers and artists in the comic book industry, working together on a story featuring Batman helping a young man escape from Ra's al Ghul's League of Assassins, who then turn up in Gotham dead. Batman travels to Tibet with a message for the League. What do you think of Heretic?
I was alright. I didn't think it was any. There might have been a second layer to this story that I'm completely missing. But other than having the legendary, legendary Neil Adams drawing this,
I
it
listen.
didn't see.
I didn't think it looked the best. You know,
No,
I
well, he's old. You
yeah.
know, you just don't have the name is important, sure, right? You want to have them on because it's a celebration, but
Uh-huh.
he's old.
But
He's
don't
not
get
gonna be
Millard,
able
bro.
to.
Realize when you're too old.
You
You
know?
understand? Don't get Millard, man. You don't want to get Millard. Because there's like a scene of like Bruce and Commissioner Gordon having coffee or whatever, and there's just too many lines. There's like just too many. Like why are there so many lines? Why are their hair? Why is their hair so curly and so like poofed? It's just there's just a lot going on. And
How Ra's al Ghul looks like he has a balding afro.
yes, yes, he does. Um, and he's just driving around. He's just chilling, driving around in the street, gets stopped by Batman. Basically, the long and short of it is that Batman finds out a man was killed and tries to follow the clues back to Ra's al Ghul because he finds out that this man was a former member of the League of Assassins and possibly trying to leave the League of Assassins when he was killed. He blames Ra's al Ghul, and Ra's al Ghul blames him. He goes, "No, when you came and did all the stuff that you did, and then you left, you
He
sparked,
does have a point, you
yeah,
know?
you sparked a mutiny almost." And now people think they can do what you do, and they're gonna keep trying to get out, and we're gonna have to keep trying to put their ass down because you caused this. Um, and so Batman goes over there to, I guess, Lian or Lacia, I think they call it, and basically gives the League a speech of like, people are gonna keep trying to leave, and you're gonna keep trying to stop them, but I want you to know that I'm gonna be here, and I'm going to make sure that they get through. Which,
I mean,
yeah.
that was the long and short of it. It just wasn't, you know? I didn't know if it had anything to say
I
in a
was
story
excited because
where
Ra's al Ghul was in it, so I thought we were gonna get a little.
I think that was just a homage to Neil Adams' involvement in the legendary Ra's al Ghul. You know,
Yes,
like the battle in the desert.
yes. So that would be a continuation of his run. Like if you read
Yeah, I
this
guess
short story after
in a
his run,
way
it would probably
that
line up.
it just wasn't really nothing. It just didn't really have anything to say in a book that I felt like all the other stories had something to say.
Yes,
You know,
I agree. Um, let's get into "I Know" by Brian Michael Bendis and
I
Alex
I
Melee.
really like this. Whenever Bendis and Malieve come together, I'm all for it. I'm all.
I did really like the art in this.
Oh man, Alex Malieve. If you haven't read Bendis and Malieve's Daredevil, it's like get on that. Oh my god.
Oh, well, thanks for the
Yes.
recommendation. Um, yeah, and so I know, it's about the Penguin who comes to an elderly, wheelchair-bound Bruce Wayne to tell him that he knows that Batman is Bruce Wayne, and to explain why he never did anything with that information. And so, yeah, you don't know it's Bruce off the top, but you just see an old ass Cobblepot.
I kind of knew.
I I
Kinda knew.
thought off the jump, but then after a while, I was like, is he just talking? Like, am I supposed to get that this is somebody else? What I do like and what I do find extremely hilarious is that in his old age, the Penguin has kind of turned into Danny DeVito.
Yes.
In his old age, he's starting to resemble the Penguin we see in Batman Returns, which I thought was very cool.
And
Because
I actually like that stupid sound effect.
yeah, like,
The
wham,
whap,
wham,
whap,
wham,
whap.
wham. And the funny thing is, you wouldn't know how to spell it, but if you say it, if you're just reading it, I'm like, wham. Oh yeah, wham, wham,
Oh,
wham, wham.
also, can we talk about Malieve's Batman? Like, there's a panel here
Yeah,
where
man.
Batman glides in onto Penguin, and it's like beautiful. Is that like an original design or something? I clicked it to be a wallpaper
It no,
because
it
that
it looks amazing. It does. The way the shadows are bouncing off of his outfit,
with
the way that the
the yellow logo, I loved it.
I'm looking at this Batman, but obviously my eyes are getting pointed down, and I think they are trying to connect Batman Returns and this book
Yeah, absolutely.
because he has his mind control penguins, who are set to blow up Gotham City. Like
Yeah, it
remember they
looks
go
like
into
they
they have
look
like
like
the rockets
little
attached to them.
suicide penguins.
Suicide penguins. My gosh. But again, I think that this is pretty definitively short because I do think that this is a similar story that we've either not only seen before, but things that we've alluded to. I think you was just talking about this with Gordon, right? This idea that it would only take somebody so long and so many clues and so many interactions before they are able to put together that Bruce Wayne is the only one with enough money and resources to be Batman, and that he did suffer something very traumatic in his life that would lead him to possibly be that. Now, a lot of people have had parts of that of those puzzle pieces and have not felt like they fit enough. But Penguin seems to think he's got them dead to rights. Like this is, I know you're Batman, bro. Like just cut it
I
out.
mean, he does.
No, he does. He does. He does definitively. And then he's like, he says Bruce Wayne is the only thing keeping me alive.
I
Um,
think it kind of comes down to that a lot with especially with these with Gordon and stuff. Like it's like we know you're Bruce, but what would exposing you do?
yes.
It would do bad for you. It would do bad for me. It's just a bad idea.
And so even with all this, Cobblepot is here to gloat that he knew. He thinks that Batman is on his last legs, and he probably is because he has no legs. He's in a wheelchair. But yeah, he's like, I knew, I knew the whole time, and now you know the only reason you're still alive is because I'm smarter than you. I win. To which Batman just electrocutes him with his wheelchair.
Yeah. Because why wouldn't Batman have a wheelchair that shoots lightning?
It's like, what did you think this was? And then he says, yeah, like I knew that you knew, Oswald, and I always knew that you were a coward. I knew what kind of coward that you were. And then supposedly we find out that Penguin went over there because he thought that Batman couldn't speak. He thought he was gloating in front of a dying old man.
Piece of shit.
Like, yeah, like that's that level of coward that they were talking about. And basically the last panel is just Bruce watching the sunset and a bunch of birds flying away. He's like, good visit.
Now you see, we go like, okay, so this is funny because lately I'm like anti-Bendis sometimes. It's like, the Superman wasn't doing it for me. His Action Comics isn't doing it for me. What he did to Jonathan Kent, I won't forgive.
Right.
But I ended up really enjoying his story and really liking the artwork. But we get to the next story, which is done by Jeff Johns, who I love. I love
Yes.
Jeff Johns, and I actually really love the story. I love seeing Batman happy with a family. We got is this like a because this is not Helena Wayne, right? This new daughter Bruce has in the future. It's like an older Damian, an older Catwoman, an older dog that couldn't possibly be Ace because Ace should be dead. He's a
Well,
dog.
that's the thing. This ended up taking the last spot in my on my list because I just didn't understand it. Like I honestly did. I felt like I was missing something that
Oh, I
everybody else
mean,
had, and I
yeah,
didn't
I
know
understood
if that
it.
was the
It's
intention
I
or not.
got it. It was just a wish. This is what Bruce wishes. He wishes that he and his family together can solve the very last crime in Gotham, unplug the bat signal, and have this peace with his son, wife, daughter, and dog. But and like I said, I love the story. I just hated I hated the art.
Yeah. But did they
I,
get? But did they catch the son of the Joker?
he died too.
Oh, he died next to with everybody there, huh?
Yeah. Everyone died. So he was like, that's it. It's over. We can finally go home. And then it turns out, poof, this is nothing but a wish. And it's Bruce's birthday, and he's alone
I
in his
feel like
cave.
that's a lot, man. Like I feel like, uh, Jeff is such a guy who goes into the history of these characters. It's kind of odd that he would go with a fast forward, but you know, it's this idea that more of what you say of this future that he hopes for, that he's constantly trying to work towards. But some of these character designs, bro,
Really weird, I know.
I
And
don't.
I know Kelly Jones is like a legendary artist, but I guess this is very of her time.
What is that cowl
His,
that the
his
Batgirl has on?
what's her name? Echo?
Yeah, so it's not Helena, it's Echo.
Yeah, it's Echo, and I think they say her name later on in the story. Yeah, look, does she have a name?
I don't know. They don't say Robin's name. They just call him Robin.
Nah, it's Damien.
Is Damien?
Yeah, he calls him Damien. Let's be grateful for that, Damien.
Okay.
He's much older. He
Right.
looks almost an adult. And I mean, I'm trying to find Echo's name. I'm not sure if they gave her one, but
It's
it's not Helena.
right.
So it might be a new character that John's created just to put his stamp on Batman.
Because he's tired of people taking him away from stuff. um, when he unplugs the bat signal, I like that we get a little bit of long-eared bats. You
Oh, we
remember?
definitely did see that. Yeah,
You
yep,
remember
you're
that?
right about that. Long
What's
time.
your take on the ears, bro?
I mean, in general,
Yeah, short
I
ears, long
like
ears.
short ears. Short
Okay.
ears Batman. I do like short ears Batman. Sometimes the long ears get a little ridiculous, and these
Yeah,
artists
like
like
that
to
vampire one where it's like curling
yeah,
backwards. They're
yeah.
so long. Yeah. Um. Yeah. So that was Last Crime in Gotham. Not one of my favorites, but now that you've explained it, I feel it deserves a little bit more than it got.
Yeah.
But man, this next one.
I love this one.
This one, if not tied with the best, is either right underneath or, like I said, on any given day, is the best one. The team of James Tinian IV and Alvaro Martinez returned to Detective Comics after their highly successful rebirth run in a story of the night Bruce Wayne made the decision to bring Dick Grayson into his dark world, ending with a classic candlelight oath. So, what I loved about this is it took a second to um, pay homage to Robin, you know?
Yes.
And that's somebody who was missing in a lot of these stories, and sometimes he's there as a side character. But this issue, I feel like, literally showed you the weight of that decision and showed you that it wasn't a decision made lightly. It wasn't just I brought him home and he's good at flips, so we're just going to go fight some crime. Sitting here, there, and watching Bruce with his quote unquote father, like his surrogate father, discussing whether or not taking him in is the right decision and what to do moving forward, and how optimistic Alfred is towards everything. I think really sheds a light on those three in a way that I didn't think I needed. I thought I had all I needed from these three, and they're very touching, you know, relationship that they have with each other. These family members that are not family, quote unquote,
Yeah.
not blood at least. But watching, like it's just crazy. Alfred speaks of like the life that he could live, and then they show the things that have happened in Nightwing's life that are a direct result of Bruce Wayne agreeing to have this child as his ward and as his sidekick. And it's like,
I,
imagine if he never took him in. Like, imagine all the continuity, all the history, all the stories, the goods, the bads, the uglies that have to do with Robin and their tandem. How many people were inspired by Robin and this idea of a kid sidekick? Oh, the Teen Titans and his relationship with Starfire, all that stuff. I thought it was really, really, really well done.
I love that they gave a little nod to the rest of the Robins, and the reason behind that too. You set the precedent. I thought
Yes.
that was great. I love that when that line dropped because I was waiting to see. I love when I love that storytelling technique where it's like that episode of Family Guy. He's like, "Oh, he said
Yeah,
it,"
yeah, yep,
but
yep.
I love when it drops and you feel it.
No,
It's
yeah,
like,
no, definitely, and that's the thing. When I was reading this, I was trying to take notes and read it, and some of these stories off the rip will let you know what the title is, and some of them
yeah,
wait to the end, and it's always for
yes,
dramatic effect. It's always so that you felt what was going on. Like for instance, the Kevin Smith story, the manufacturer for use, didn't say the title until the end because you didn't know
yes.
that he was going to manufacture it until you got to that point. But yeah, this idea that Bruce could be so um like have like he's so on the level, like he's so intuitive that he would know that bringing in this kid is going to open up the floodgates. Like this isn't just the only one. If you can use this logic to save this one child and try to turn him into the direction of good, why
You
not
can
the
say no.
world? Why
Yeah.
not every child? Right now, and we've seen a litany of young people come through Bruce Wayne's uh those doors, the Wayne Manor. And Alfred, depending on some writers, will be like, I have no idea why he has so many, children. I keep trying to tell them to
Yeah,
stop,
but
and
playing it
yada yada
as a
yada.
joke too. I like the way they did it here, where it was because of Alfred.
Yes.
But I
I,
also love that it segued into the next story because it's like if you set the precedent, so we take you, we have to take in all these other ones, and then the very next story is like all the ones who he took in. It's
yes.
like I love that. This was actually my favorite.
Oh, that one is also like I just love the Bat family. I do.
Yes.
I have a strong affinity for every member of the Bat family. I like how they talk to Bruce. I like how Bruce talks to them. I like where they get their inspiration from. I like that they all try to strike out on their own. I like the uniqueness that each one of them brings. I did not see Batwing at this reunion,
Oh
but
no!
but
Wait a minute. You're right.
but yeah, the last story. Oh, real quick in the presidents. Um, like you were saying, once they decide, like once Batman lays the question down of like once him, then what happens with everybody else? It is not Alfred or Batman who comes up with the next thing. It is like you
It's
said, Dick
Dick.
Grayson, and
Yep.
he's like, "You'll do for them what you did for me. I am the president. You started this with me, and you were going to continue it." And the optimism, the positivity that's displayed on Dick Grayson's face, on that young impressionable kid's eyes, shows you the light through the dark night. It shows you that dynamic that they have with one another, where Bruce is almost dreading having to take on this responsibility, not because he doesn't like Dick, but just because of all that it entails, or that it would mean, and the idea that Robin's like, as long as we do it together, what could happen? What's the worst that could happen? And that's so cool because Batman broods a lot. So to have somebody there like, don't worry about it, bruh. We'll just do the same thing when they come through. Was really really cool. Um, the last anniversary story, I'll call it, because I think Medieval is definitively the Detective Comics 1000 story. Is Batman's greatest case, written by Tom King, Tony Daniel, and Joel Jones. Groundbreaking Batman writer Tom King, groundbreaking and wedding breaking Batman writer Tom King is joined by Tony Daniels and Joel Jones, who share artistic duties on the story. Presented using parallel story threads, like Tom King likes to use. Bruce Wayne visits his parents' grave while Batman assembles his entire coalition of allies around him. I feel like very similarly to the Newt Brody story, this was something that you did not know what was going on
Yeah, I love that
until
because
you
I didn't
did.
know it. I couldn't figure it out.
I couldn't figure it out either, but
But I loved the banter.
oh my
Like,
god,
yeah,
amazing,
yeah,
amazing.
is this the first time Tom King writes the entire Bat family together?
I want to say so because I felt like he kept them on the outs in his Batman run.
Yeah, they kind of didn't fit, you know.
Yeah.
But this kind of makes me want them. I need him to do more of this. This was great. I love that page. Okay, you got that page where Bruce is standing at his parents' grave, but I'm reading the banter between the Bat family, and it's like hilarious.
Oh my, all of it's funny. I love how Jason keeps blaming himself. He's like,
He's like,
this is gonna be about me. He's just gonna kick me out. That's what it's about.
I
It's
know
about that
it.
thing I did. He's like, that's it. He's just gonna kick me out. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. I like that Huntress and Cassandra are hanging out.
Yeah, yeah, that does make sense though.
They're like on the outs, and they have their own family drama to deal with. But I like that. I like Batwoman versus
This is the
Batgirl.
this is the first time Huntress and Cassandra meet. This Huntress
I want to say, yeah,
seemed like it. And
yeah.
I don't really remember them being together, but you're right about the argument between Batwoman and Batgirl.
Yeah, I've been to war. Have you been to war? War. I dated Dick Grayson. Have you dated Dick Grayson? And then Dick Grayson at one point is like, "I'm Batman." She's like, "Oh my god."
He's always I was Batman.
Oh my god! And then the whole thing of like, can you get kicked out? Is that a thing? You can't get kicked out of a family. That's why it's a family. He's right. Only one way out I know, and I have taken it. I don't recommend it. Don't act like you're special, Dick. We all died. I haven't died. Give it time. Is that why we're here? Someone died? Who died? We're all here. Maybe he got a new one, and that one died. What? They seem to come and go as go faster as the years pass. Oh my god, all of that stuff. because he's Batman and we're not. What does that even mean? I was Batman.
Yeah,
See,
this was
I dated
definitely.
that. Whatever problem he's in, it's all the time. I was Batman. What's war compared to that? Oh my god, just hilarious. And how he gets there, and all of a sudden, like he gets there, he doesn't say a word, but um,
They know it must be like an anniversary thing.
but not only that, Jason's still apologizing. He's like, Bruce, listen, if you know about that thing, then I'm sorry about that thing. But if you don't know about that thing, then that thing doesn't exist. Unless it's not about that thing, well, then you could just forget about that thing. But that thing's good. Oh, I thought that was so funny. And ultimately, you find out that everyone has joined on this roof out of pure respect for Batman. You know, pure respect for Bruce Wayne, the man. They're all members of his team, of his Bat family. He's axed them onto the roof. Um, and he's asked them there for a selfie.
Yes, say cheese.
They
That's the only word he says in the story. Cheese.
yes,
It's the greatest.
he asked him there for a selfie so he could lay it at the grave of his parents, the new family that he
It's just
has to not to replace the old one, but what the mystery of looking for a family lost gets him one, and it's beautiful. Seeing everybody lined up together, and the idea that this man in the middle has fundamentally changed them all.
changed the lives of every single person in that spread, and Batwing, who wasn't invited per se.
Batwing and Azrael weren't invited,
Well,
but
at least we know why Azrael wasn't invited.
yeah,
He's
he's
a
in
dick.
space. Oh, I said he's in space. It's one of those. He's either a dick or he's in space. It's one of those two. Um, yeah, but you get you get this idea that he is content. You see Bruce smile at the graves of Thomas and Martha with this picture, and yeah, man, it was good. I would have kind of liked it to end the book.
Yeah, I could have done without the okay. let's get into the Arkham Knight story because okay, I see where they're going with this, and any combination of Peter Tomasi and and I'm sorry, I'm like so flustered right now
Right? No, I
because
understand.
I'm like any combination of Peter Tomasi and Doug Menke is gonna be like oh okay because that's from I remember them from like GL Core and I'm like okay but this particular time I was just like, oh, I guess because it was following, I guess in the same way you watch a show and sometimes by the end of it, the things that have happened in the middle have drained you because they were so good. And you're
Yes,
like by the end of it I'm like, oh, okay.
I think
I
I
wasn't feeling it.
I think my initial issue with it, what rubbed me the wrong way, is that I feel like very early on, and when I say very early on, I mean like the second page probably, you kind of get what's gonna happen with this story. You kind of get that it's gonna be narration laid over these things. So it gets to a point where I'm just kind of waiting for that to stop, and it only stops on the last page, and it doesn't really say anything. So I was like, wait a minute. um, it reminded me very much of the Man of Steel story that Bendis wrote for Action 1000.
Oh, good point.
Um, and so, but I probably like that more because he was actually Superman was actually acting in the timeline as it goes, whereas this is just kind of a villain monologue.
Which I guess fits in the anniversary issue. So I can see where they were trying to not just do something that was tied in the end, but also a look at Batman's history.
And just there's a bunch of iconic shots through a bunch of iconic runs of Batman's history. Uh, Obviously, I marked for the sword fight, no, the shirtless sword
Yes.
fighting in the desert, but I also marked for Nobody, for seeing
Oh,
Batman about to kill Nobody. I really liked that story with him and Damian and Batman and Robin.
that
Um,
I mean, I'm sure like Tomasi was like, put that in there.
I'll
Yeah,
just slide that in there,
put that in there.
and then as if it was written by William Shakespeare himself. So what? Batman. Say it fast, really fast, as fast as you
Batman.
can say over and over. So what do you hear? Badman, Badman, Batman, Badman. To me, now and forever, one and the same. The people of Gotham deserve better than a dark night. They will experience the hand and the fair and true servant at work, and they will bear witness to the Arkham Knight finally delivering justice to the Batman. And to be
Well,
continued in
oh,
Detective
okay.
1001.
So here's the thing though. I do like that they took the Arkham Knight name and made him into like an actual like knight style. Like
I kinda do. I just don't
it's like
understand. Like, does Batman knows they call him the Dark Knight, right? Does he ever take that on? Does he ever like, I am the Knight of the King? Like, what is it? Like he? I've never felt him taking it on the medieval way.
I'm goddamn Batman.
Yeah, that's all I've ever.
That's
That's all I've ever heard. So I do understand the idea of medieval knights and all that other kind of stuff. He has a sword now, which he didn't have before. Um, this, in case people have literally been living under a rock, this villain first debuted in the Arkham Knight video game, created by Rocksteady. It's a Batman open world game, and when that game first was promoted, it was promoted to have a brand spanking new villain that no one has ever seen before. Don't try
but
to guess.
everybody knew.
Yes, 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 they did. They told you not. Don't try to guess because you're never gonna guess. And then people were like, "It kind of seems like it's Jason Todd," and it ended up being Jason Todd.
No, it's totally not Jason Todd. They
No, no,
fucking
no.
figured it out.
It was basically it was basically Jason Todd. So two questions. Um, do you think that the person underneath the mask is someone close to Bruce? And the second question has to do with the first. Um, would you make it someone close to Bruce?
Okay, so I think I'm going to answer those both with one answer because for me it's like one and the same. I
Okay.
don't think you want to do someone close to Bruce because it's gonna be underwhelming. Who else? Okay, so if it's a member
Batwing,
of
he's
the
gone
Bat
crazy.
family,
He wasn't there for the
it's
selfie,
like
and now
you were just at the selfie thing, but it's like I don't know. It's like it seemed like someone who had been affected by him. So I would prefer I would prefer if they created a new character that had kind of been around and has been growing all this time and has now decided to act for whatever reason.
yeah,
I would prefer an original character. This is what I wanted in the game.
yeah, no, I get that. I get that. I feel like they're probably just gonna try to make it tied to him. I just hope it's not too convoluted. We've been primed for this before, this exact character before. So I think a lot of people are a little bit trepidatious when it comes to what the story is gonna entail. But listen, this brand has lasted over 80 years. There's very few things you can do with it to tank it.
Yeah,
Um,
well, you can't really reinvent the wheel right now.
no, no, no. So it will definitely it's definitely going to add some more to the mythos, and I hope it's somebody good. I hope it stays around. I hope it's another definitive run because I think we're due for another big introduction of someone new and their machinations and what they're going to add to the mythos. Because without new artists, without new writers, without new ideas, without new villains, without new members of the Bat family, this doesn't stay as long as it has. And this constant reinvention and evolution is what allows comics to live as long as especially this one has. So I'm excited going forward.
I'm excited going forward. I want to see what Tomasi ends up doing with this night.
So did you say that your favorite was the selfie?
Yeah, it was the what was the name of it? The
The great Batman's greatest case.
Batman's greatest case. Yeah, I definitely that was my favorite story.
Okay. And what do you think was? It doesn't have to be the worst, but the one you least liked.
It might have to be I feel like the Leslie Jones story, the Neil Adams. I mean, Danny O'Neill.
Oh, they Leslie Jones. She wrote Batman. They find out Leslie Jones is writing Batman. Wow.
Leslie Thompson story by Danny O'Neill.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like you said earlier. It was like, come on.
Yeah, it was a bit of dry pie. I'm not
Yeah.
gonna lie there. But this was an important episode not only for Detective Comics, for Batman, and comic books everywhere, right? Because getting to 1,000 is not an easy task. But
Nope.
this was also a very important episode for us, my friend, because not many people know we did an entire episode about Batman that was lost to the Speed Force.
We actually haven't even scratched the surface of the things that we talked about on that episode.
Nope.
It was so good. I'm so sorry.
we're gonna get there soon because when we're probably up for a Batman movie sometime soon. right? In
Yep, for
another
sure.
year or so. So I'm getting ready to dive real deep into the character of Batman. Um, we've been kind of DC heavy lately. We're gonna do Shazam in a couple weeks, but the next episode of the Major Issues podcast, we're actually gonna go into a deep dive, character analysis of sorts with Hellboy. We got that
Nice.
reboot coming up,
Yikes, you're
and
right.
I've got some super fans, some admitted super fans that will be coming in to the studio to talk to us and myself about Hellboy, because Lord knows I need a little bit more education than I got. So I'm definitely ready for that. But you guys gonna want to make sure that you guys are ready for that by making sure you're subscribed to the Major Issues podcast. First of all, thank you
Tune
for
in.
listening. Yeah, thank you for listening and tuning in. But don't forget to tune in every single Wednesday for a brand new episode of the Major Issues podcast, where we talk about the newest and latest, greatest things to come to comic books and comic book media. And you can find all of our stuff, wherever podcasts are found. You can find the Major Issues podcast. That's Stitcher, Podbean, Podcast Addict, the Apple Podcast app on all your devices. And if you have a regular / good phone, you could just go to Google and type in the Major Issues podcast, and we'll be literally the first ones to pop right up. People really dug that Wrestling with Comics episode, so our membership is growing. People are
Really?
liking,
I
people are
actually
sharing.
didn't know that. I didn't know the logistics behind that.
Yeah,
So they
man.
enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's one of the best ones of the last couple months. Really, it's
Awesome.
performing really, really well, and hopefully this Batman one got a lot of people on board. But the clique is growing. You want to be there before it gets big. You want to get a seat. You know, it's gonna be standing room only soon with the Major Issues podcast. So you want to make sure you got a seat, and just like that person. Just like that baby boomer who was able to afford college and buy 3 cars and all that stuff. Just
That's
like
what the Leslie Thompson story.
yes,
A
that's what it
baby
was.
boomer
You
screaming.
damn millennials always wanting to use violence to solve everything. Just like that baby boomer who is holding on to his issue of Detective Comics 27 and saying, I was there from the beginning. You want to be there from the ground floor with the Major Issues podcast, because I've been to the future and we become the latest and greatest thing to come to comic books and comic book media. So you want to get on that stat. Now, that's all if you want to listen to us, but we want to hear you guys. So go ahead and try to reach out to us. If you look in the show notes, you can see you can reach us at comicbookclick@gmail.com, but you can also go to facebook.com/comicbookclick, Instagram at comicbookclick, and use the hashtag comicbookclick to talk about the newest, hottest, latest, and greatest things that come to comic books and comic book media. And you can go to @MajorIssuesCBC, the official Twitter of this podcast. And that's all the ways that you can reach us. Don't forget to rate and review us on iTunes. Just give us 5 stars. Let's pretend there's no other stars but 5. I mean, come on. Do you really want to half-ass this review? Just go straight. Just go straight 5. And it'll be the quick. It does 2 things. One, 5-star rated podcasts appear in the news and noteworthy section of the Apple Podcast app. So those who haven't found us yet have an easier way to find us, and it helps us know what you guys like about the podcast. So we can start getting rid of what you don't, bringing in what you like. We're learning this as we go along, and it has been incredibly rewarding, this entire venture into podcasting. So thank you guys who have been listening. Thank you guys who just started listening with this episode. Keep on listening. Tell a friend to tell a friend. It's the quickest way for us to grow. And we're gonna be here for quite some time. So make sure that you are here, staying tuned. Whew! I feel like I just did 1,000 issues. Well, my name is George Serrano, aka the Don.
It's Jonathan Escudero, aka Yogi.
And this has been our Detective Comics 1000 recap and review. And remember, whether or not your parents were shot in a place called Crime Alley, whether or not you think you can solve all the world's greatest riddles, whether you tripped and fall into a vat of chemicals at Ace Chemicals, or you're one of the lovable members of the Bat family. Remember, in a way, we're all Batman, but we are the Clique, and you, yes, you, are worthy.